Welcome back to Barely Filtered. I have had a morning. I don't know if it's just having kids this age or what, but I realized this morning that I really need to put some attention towards setting boundaries because my kids, they're sleeping with me. I know people like roll their eyes. And at first I thought this was a great idea because I only get them 50% of the time. So I was kind of guilty and I was like, I'm going to let my kids sleep with me. And I like it and everybody else can go fuck off. But now it's like they're getting so big that they're just fighting with each other because their limbs are kicking each other. And I realized that energetically, it's not allowing my life to feel open to having a partner because obviously no new partner that I have is going to sleep with my two kids. That's kind of weird. So it commenced this morning. I am starting a strict sleep in your own bed initiative. I don't know how it's going to work, but wish me luck. Apart from that, it's really hard feeling like, am I doing this parenting thing single right? Am I doing the dating thing single right? And I think it's a lesson for all of us because even though, you know, you might not have little kids, you probably are not a single parent with young kids. I don't imagine that's most of my listeners, but just not feeling like we are equipped for the job that life has handed us at this time, I think is kind of a human experience. And I am trying to lean into, you know, everything's not okay, but that's okay because not everything is always going to be okay. And just breathing through those moments. I think a lot of times we try to make things so wrapped up in a bow and call it something like my kids have discipline problems. Maybe it's a me thing, but I'm always like, I'm not good at this. I need to take a course on this, or I have ADHD, or I shouldn't drink. Maybe I'm an alcoholic. Like I feel like I need to put a label on things to make me feel like I have a sense of control over it. But lately I'm trying a thing where I'm just kind of breathing through these moments of feeling like I don't fully understand how to make things better. And that's okay, because I think just that willingness to accept that just doing your best is all you can do. And when I tell you that like my cortisol, so my ex-husband has been in Italy, which doesn't help, which makes me like just mad too. Cause I'm like, I want to be in Lake Como. He's been there for 10 days. So it's just been me with my kids. And it's a science. Like kids are 9,000 times worse for their mom than they are for their dad. It's a fact. And not having like a male in the household, it's noticeable. Like my kids play to my guilt and like I discipline them. I give them timeouts. I take things away. There's no screens. That's one thing. Like the YouTube, my kids, if they watch an hour of YouTube, their behavior will drastically change. Like they get so much worse. I don't know if it's the flashing lights or the advertisements. There's something that they are doing on YouTube Kids, YouTube grown-ups, all of it, that is making I've talked to so many parents about this, that's making kids' behavior so much worse. I don't know what it is. So right now it's like I'm running a boot camp at my house. No screens, no iPads. I just ordered like these little schedules of when you get home, you wash your hands, you take your shoes off, Remy has homework now. So I don't know who this person is that I'm becoming, but I'm realizing that I just need to set some boundaries because I started dating somebody. I can never get past the part where we're dating in my head to like when we actually would be together. And I feel like in order to manifest something, you actually have to picture it and see it working. And right now with like my kids still sleeping with me, there's no feasible picture in my head of how I would have maybe a blended family or a new partner. And I did start dating somebody, and you guys are going to laugh because I know so many people out there are probably like, oh my God, take a break. I did take a break. I took a few weeks off. And then this person direct DM'd me on Raya, and I went out on a date with him, and it did not click right away. But it didn't click right away for a few reasons. I didn't tell you guys this last part. So I'm going to let you in on a little secret. About every 6 to like 12 months, I get a little filler in my lips. Okay. I decided that that was the day to do it right before my first date with this guy. Of course, my lips are swollen, and I'm like, am I self-sabotaging? What is with this choice to get your lips injected before a first date? So the whole time I'm like in my head worrying about if he's noticing my lips. And I think that really set the tone because you want to be able to be present with somebody. And it made me realize that if you're concerned about how you're being perceived, you can't fully appreciate another person. So don't ever do anything to your face before you go on a first date. And it was funny because I didn't like his, this is so mean. I didn't love his outfit. Like, it was like super hipster, and it's just not the kind of guy I'm usually attracted to. But I loved his personality and I loved his heart. Like, he's so genuine, so kind. There's so many things like that I have been able to take away from him now we've been on 4 dates. Like, he's somebody with a great amount of integrity. I can just tell. And you guys are probably like, bitch, you don't know how to read people. What about the last 4 people? I promise you, this guy is different. And so even though I wasn't like right away, like, oh, I love his style and everything, I went out with him on a second date and he dressed totally different. And I was like, okay, this is better. This is hot. It's not like he doesn't know how to dress. He has a real style that is his unique style. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of my friend Kara is dating Shannon Leto, who's famous and he's like a rock star. But that guy also dresses like, when I see him sometimes, I'm always surprised because he's got a style and he rocks it. And it's hot. It's hot when people have confidence. So I think I needed to see multiple versions of this style to realize like, oh, this is intentional. This was not an accident. It goes from, ooh, I don't like this look, to like, oh, this is hot because this is his style. Now I've realized that he has a personal style and now it's cool. So we went on a second date, then we went on a third date, and now I'm going to see him tomorrow. And it's going really well. And it's kind of showing me that maybe first impressions are not always correct, especially when you're in your head because you got your lips done. So TBD, it's going well and I'm not dating anybody else. So basically that means that I have a boyfriend now. Tune in. I have on a very special guest. Her name is Serena Poon, and she is a celebrity chef, nutritionist, and wellness expert known for her innovative approach to holistic health. As the creator of Culinary Alchemy, she combines functional nutrition, energy healing, and mindfulness to help clients achieve optimal wellness, balance hormones, and promote longevity. So I have so many questions for you. This just sounds like everything that I want more of in my life. But let's start with Culinary Alchemy because I don't know what that means.
Okay. So first, thank you so much for having me. I can already tell this is just like the vibe and the energy here. You guys have such a fun group.
Oh, and she's a Reiki master, so that she knows what she's talking about.
Yes, yeah, so I know vibe. I know energy.
Yeah.
So thank you for asking. Culinary Alchemy is basically this like proprietary method I developed when I was actually at my sickest. So I don't know if you had found it online anywhere, but I've had like 8 surgeries and it's because I got MRSA. Have you ever heard of MRSA?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
like a staph infection,
deadly
right?
Staph infection. Yeah. That's resistant to all but just a few antibiotics. And I got it literally from the OR. I had a surgery to remove some damaged, like inflamed tissue. And from that, I got MRSA. And that became this 8-year journey for me. I had 8 surgeries. And so that's been, it was part of my journey, but also part of my teaching during that time. So after my 4th surgery, it was like an insane experience. I had a massive hematoma. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like
internal bleeding.
So there was like a stitch because this was my 4th surgery. And they started having to graft in, tissue. And so one of the stitches tore, it was a tiny little tear, my upper pec muscle. And it was sort of unnoticeable at first, just a teeny, teeny little tear. But after about 12 days, it just sort of popped. And that tear got really big. And so then I had this massive hematoma and I was bleeding internally. And, long story short, I lost probably like 2 liters of blood. It was insane. And I think it's just my daddy's an angel. He's just looking out for me. And I have my angels and my guides. And one of my clients, they knew the medical director at Cedars. So they literally like came, picked me up. It was a Saturday afternoon. And this medical director happened to have a trauma office with an OR, like a private office, 10 blocks from where I lived. So random. Don't know this guy. Don't know. They didn't even know that he had a trauma office there. So he saved my life. And then that became this sort of turning point in my journey. And, I started my journey because my daddy had had cancer when he was really young. I was in college at the time, and he passed after a little over a year. So that was sort of why I became so mission focused about health and what we can do for our health and foods and whole foods and nutrition, because we didn't have that knowledge back when he was sick. So here I am recovering from actually my fifth, because my fifth surgery was to sort of save my life. And I was so depleted and just in like the worst state physically.
How old were you at this point?
I was 30. I was 38.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, now the whole world knows I'm like a lot older than that. So at that point, I was sort of well in my career as a chef, and I knew nutrition and all the different types. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, I know everything to do. I know what to eat. I'm super healthy. I exercise. Like every box checks off. But I'm going through this experience, and why? I'm a good person. This is fourth time around now. And it was a tough time in my life, sort of when you have that dark night of the soul kind of experience. Yeah. And the turning point there was I remembered, I'm on this journey because of what inspired me from like my dad's journey. And actually my mom got cancer 2 months after he passed. It's just our family's health. It's kind of crazy, but in all of it are lessons and learnings that have become teachings. So while I was healing from that, I started working with this healer from New Mexico that I'd only talked to, here and there, like a 911 situation. Everything's great. You don't talk to your therapist or your healer. Yeah. But then when things are bad, you're 911ing them. And
over the phone?
Yes, over the phone.
Oh, interesting. I feel like somebody else was talking to me about a healer from New Mexico. Is his name David?
No, this is a woman. Okay. Her name is Noelle. Actually, I hadn't met her at that point. She was working with one of my best friend's families for years. Okay. So they knew her.
She's an intuitive healer.
She's an intuitive healer, and she just does something. She's like a master healer. She one day, it sounds kind of crazy, but in her 60s, she just had a calling. And the message was she lived in Nashville with her husband. Her kids are grown at that point. She had grandkids. And the calling was that she needed to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And she needed to serve. And she did it. She moved. She and her husband kept like a long distance relationship for
she went by herself.
A while. She went by herself, and she started practicing what she was doing. So while I was recovering, I made a commitment to just work with her every 3 weeks, no matter what happened. Didn't matter if I was in a good place or not. Because at the time, I couldn't really use my left arm, and I was a chef. So I didn't know, like, how was I going to support myself? I can't really actually cook. Yeah. It's just it's limited. My mobility was limited. I didn't know when it was going to come back. So I'd have these sessions, and I didn't really understand what she was doing. She'd kind of go through, my body head to toe. She'd talk about energy centers. She'd do what she called releases. And I just felt better. And I didn't really understand what she was doing, but we'd go through each section of the body, and she'd tell me how many things she released and what she thought it was from. So during that process, I thought, okay, well, I feel like I'm not doing anything. I get on the phone with you for 5 or 10 minutes. You call me back. 90 minutes later, I feel better, and you tell me what things you released, right? Quotes released. So I thought, okay, how can I help her help me? And I'm still healing from this massive surgery and all the blood loss. So I started addressing the areas of my body that she was working on. So, from our root all the way up to our head. So I kind of focus on energy centers. But the energy centers, the nutrients and the foods that we choose that are in alignment with our energy centers, they actually have vitamins and minerals and nutrients that also support those areas of our body.
Mm.
So I started doing this just because this is when I know food. Um, and I just felt better and better. And I not only went into full recovery, my full use of my arm came back. This ended up being this vertical of my business that I just started because I didn't know when I'd be able to cook and cater again. So I started doing just the nutritional side of my practice, consultations, and working with pre-existing clients that were sort of on a break because I was recovering, and then working with people that were doing elective surgeries because I knew how to optimize healing already before this. And I just sort of added in this method of like, let's add energy, let's add food, let's add supplements, let's add the intangible to the tangible and see
Mm-hmm.
if we can really fast track, optimize, and really maximize your healing potential. And it worked.
Yeah.
So that really is what became Culinary Alchemy. It's just this combination of, using food to nourish our physical body, but also in a way our energetic body.
So when you say energetic body, are you talking about chakras, like
Yeah,
the
I'm
chakras in
talking.
your body?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say like our root chakra. What would be foods to support the root chakra, for instance?
So that would be grounding foods.
Okay.
Foods that are like root vegetables, foods that you kind of like pull up from the earth, carrots and beets and potatoes and sweet potatoes, and they're incredibly nutrient dense and mineral dense.
Okay.
So they are grounding. They're rich in magnesium and calcium and all the minerals that you need that actually help. If you think about when you take magnesium, especially if you're taking magnesium glycinate, for example, there's all these different forms of magnesium. It actually has a calming effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it also can affect it's not just like, calcium and magnesium for your bones, which is also very like grounding. And it's also great for our neurohormones. It's great for our neurotransmitters. It has the calming effect on our top chakra, right? Like on our mind and our cognition and our mood. They're all essential because the whole body we're connected. So the organ systems are entirely connected. And my approach is that health is connected just from a holistic perspective with the W. So what makes up health is your physical body, but also your emotional, your mind body, your energy body. That makes up the whole of us.
So would you say there's a certain diet or food somebody should eat who's trying to mend like a broken heart, like a heart chakra or grieving in some way?
Oh yeah. I have like a whole thing. I did actually like this whole article. I can't remember which, I don't know if it was Chalk or one of these like wellness magazines about what you eat when you have a broken heart.
Oh my God, what do you eat?
And literally it's like your heart chakra it's represented by the color green.
Right.
So, interesting enough, it's not red, it's green.
Right.
And when you're eating green foods, first of all, they're anti-inflammatory. And if you think about when you're heartbroken, you are stressed, you are inflamed. There's the fight and the flight. We are in flight, right? We're nursing our emotions and our broken heart. So it's all very cardiovascular rich too. These are all nutrients that actually help strengthen your cardiovascular system. And it's anti-inflammatory and it's oxygen rich. And there's full of, minerals again, minerals and vitamins, especially if you're eating very like green foods. So you actually feel better because you have more energy.
Right.
You're more nourished. It's definitely better than eating foods that are processed, right? It's definitely better than eating grains, or like I keep thinking rice. I don't know why, but like, that's not going to give you energy that nourishes you beyond just like kind of that short sugar spike.
Right.
So you at least like really start to feel better. And if your mind and your heart and your emotions aren't well, you actually lean to your physical to start to feel better. I mean, there's like a balance that we have between all the bodies, right? All the systems. So where one part of you feels like it needs support or it's weak, it's important to that the other parts of you, the other systems, the other bodies kind of help bring everything up. So when you're feeling better physically, it also stimulates the production of different, neurochemicals and these
Yeah.
other and serotonin and dopamine and everything else. But if you're feeling sluggish physically, you're not likely to be active. You're not likely to produce those.
Right. It actually reminds me of, I remember I read something by Brene Brown once, and she had a statistic about how if you look at people who have either died from being an addict or are in the grips of current addiction, they all share like a shame component, which is so, but like the shame came before the addiction. So it was when you said that about that, when your emotions aren't right or there's something that's not fully healed, even just like in your heart and your mind, then like you try to make your body feel better, maybe by overeating or drugs, alcohol. It makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you say that because I've been working with people for over 20 years. And so often, whether it's an addiction or just a habit we can't kick or a craving that we can't, people often say, I'm so good. I work out every single day and I eat like this, but then at night I have to have something
Yeah.
sweet or I
hmm
need to have something that's naughty. So often it actually comes from an imprint from when we're young, from my childhood. There's something comforting that usually comes from the result of a trauma.
Mm.
Sometimes it's not, but there's a comfort in what we have a hard time letting go of because there's an attachment to a memory that's an imprint way in the past that we're not fully consciously aware of. And you're right, people use food to sort of anesthetize their feelings. And that's where we usually sort of find the answer for someone who has like a hard time kicking a bad habit or losing that last few pounds or getting rid of inflammation levels that they have when it seems like they're doing everything else right. It usually comes from some experience that has an association to shame or guilt or something that they needed to uh, anesthetize. And then once we process that, even though it has nothing to do, directly with food or nutrition or supplements, it actually starts that healing process and automatically you make different choices.
Right. Wow. That makes so much sense. I want to pivot for a second because I know that you work in the field of longevity, which is kind of like a buzzword now. It sounds good to everybody because everybody wants to be young forever. But what is longevity to you and what is your goal in working in this space?
Thank you. That's actually a great question. I've not had anyone frame the question the way you just did.
Oh,
I love
thanks.
it. Yeah. So, I mean, I believe that longevity is really based on how you live every day. My partner is a leading scientist in the aging science or longevity space and has been for a long time. So, there is the what you have on the frontier, right? The biotech, and there's what we now call biohacking. There's everything from the highest tier of what you can do all the way to what I believe is where it starts, your foundation. And it is your daily habits.
Hmm.
It is your daily habits that build your foundation for what becomes, and in my definition, longevity is, a long, well-lived life.
Mhm.
You're living life on your own terms. It doesn't mean you can live to be 150 if you want. Maybe that's possible. I believe that it is. But do you want to,
Yeah.
and how do you want to live that life? Whether you live to be 70, 80, 100, 120, whatever the number is, are you living on your own terms? And are you enjoying your life? That to me is sort of the goal. And, in this space, my mission is to bring all the resources possible that we know that we have access to, whether it's primarily it's in the form of education, but we're also creating things, that are tangible that people can have to give them those options. Like I want people to have sovereignty. You
Yeah.
get to choose how you live and you can make the best choices when you have knowledge and access to those options. And sometimes it could be something that sounds crazy, like $100,000 stem cell treatment, or sometimes it could just be what you do every single day that builds that foundation. So
Yeah.
I think it's important to have, across the board. So you can have a strong foundation. And in my opinion, you can start anytime.
Really?
Yes. You don't have to start like in your 20s. And if you figure it out in your 60s, it's too late. That's not necessarily true. Our bodies are constantly growing, evolving. We make new cells, old cells die. I mean, at any point, you can start and live a better life in the next 5 years than you did the last 5 years. And then
So would
so
you
on
be
and so
aging
forth.
backwards in that case?
That is something that we can do. We can bring biological age backwards.
Wow. What are a few tips to bring our biological age backwards? Because I know people want to know.
So, well, I mean, I think, like you said, longevity has been such a buzzword. There's all the things, anything that creates hermetic stress, which is why people are cold plunging and then they jump into a hot sauna and then they do things like HIIT, and that's all causing a response. It causes hormesis, which is like a hermetic stress, and it tells our body, uh-oh, like, don't get so comfortable. You might die. Something's going on. This environment isn't safe. And so then our body is flooded with the right proteins. It activates our longevity pathways. And so this is why people are doing things like what I guess we call biohacking, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, just like the cold plunging. There's so many different machines and devices and activities you can do, different modalities to sort of stimulate that activation, right? And putting our body into hormesis. So you can do that.
So cold plunge and sauna.
That you can do. You can do fasting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big believer in intermittent fasting, and I think a lot of us sort of do it naturally.
Right.
And then some of us take it to an extreme. I don't think that that's necessary. I think you have eating windows, and then you have windows where you don't eat, and you allow your body to get a little bit hungry, and you also allow your digestive system to process and rest. So just doing that also can activate those same pathways. And then, of course, there's so many different supplements that you can take.
What about NAD? What's your feelings on NAD?
NAD is basically like, that's the energy center for our cells. That's our battery. So I take NMN. I was doing NAD IVs well before COVID.
Same.
So, yeah. So then it's great for us. Any type of NAD precursor is good for us, especially if we're over a certain age, our NAD levels drop down. So anytime you can help your body make it, which is what a precursor does, I personally take NMN. I think it's great. I also think it's very, very important to stay well hydrated.
Really?
That's
everybody's
huge.
Like, I have like the most elite top longevity scientists coming here and they're all like, drink water. And I'm like, you went to medical school for that, but like, it's true.
Yes, it's so
one of the most
true.
important things.
It is. And it's interesting because when we go to talks or conferences and in the longevity space, and people ask for my top 3 things, I'll say eat the rainbow, because you get the whole spectrum of all, not just vitamins and minerals and nutrients, but plant polyphenols, and all these phytochemicals that we need. The most brightly colored produce, so vegetables and fruit, usually went through this process that we just talked about called hormesis. Like they had to fight to stay alive. And those are the ones that are more brightly colored. And so when we eat plants that went through the same process, that we take that in as well. So it's better to eat really rich, deep colored, rich colored fruits and vegetables. So that's like key, which you can kind of do anywhere.
Right.
And ideally it's organic. And meditation, that's my number 2. And my number 3 is hydration.
Wow.
So those are my top 3 for longevity. Because it has to be something that you can do anywhere.
Yeah. And I'm not hearing that those are super expensive, because I know like with those NAD drips, I mean, they were very expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So expensive.
I mean, supplements. I have a supplement line, and supplements are not for everyone. You know, some people aren't comfortable taking supplements. Some people, it's maybe out of their budget or they have a small budget for supplements. I think what you do every day to live well for as long as you so choose has to be something that is sustainable, no matter where you are on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I traveled 300 days last year.
Wow.
So, you have to be able to do certain things anywhere you go. And you can fill your plate with the most brightly colored fruits and vegetables, even if you are not plant-based. I mean, you can have animal protein, but still make sure that you get a whole rainbow of, produce, whole foods, whole plant-based foods on your plate or at some point throughout your day, even if you don't get it in one meal. And hydration is incredibly important. Most clients come to me so dehydrated, they can't even get through. They go through like maybe 6 of those bottles that we have in front of us.
And as I feel my lips, they're like cracked,
dry.
So,
and so our body acclimates. Our bodies are such incredible, complex, intricate, amazing machines. They're not the most AI'd out device that you can find, but it's really our bodies. And we learn to acclimate. So if you're only drinking 16 ounces of water a day, or some people say, oh, my 8 glasses of 8 ounces. Okay, great. So you're drinking 64 ounces of water a day. That's better than half of that. But if that's all you're giving your body and you sweat, you work out, you weigh anywhere from 130 and up, that's not enough water for your body.
It's really not.
Our bodies are 70+% water. And if you think about what's in our mitochondria, this is all water. So your body will learn to live with what you give it, but it doesn't mean that it's functioning at its highest or its optimal level.
Yeah.
Plus, when we're dehydrated, we also have a tendency to release histamines. So there are a lot of dispositions and conditions that can be diagnosed as like disorders or autoimmune that can come from just not drinking well hydrated enough. Like you want quality water, of course. You know, but not being hydrated enough is so key. And when I start people off, that's one of the number one things. I mean, people will start feeling better in like 4 days.
You know what is so crazy though? Because in my head, I'm like, I know I'm one of those people who just doesn't drink enough water. And you want to know the reason? I don't want to have to pee because I don't want to have to stop my day because I'm so go, go, go. And I'm in my car a lot and I just, I'm starting a workout class or I have this appointment and it never feels like the right time to like have to pee in 30 minutes.
And that's what everybody says. And when you start to drink more water, because you're taking in more than what your body acclimated itself to, you'll actually feel like you're peeing all day long, for the first maybe week or two. So
that goes away?
It does. You adjust because then your body's saying, oh, I'm getting more, so I don't have to keep all this on reserve. And you'll adjust. So you'll adjust until you get to the point where whatever it is that you're having, let's say you're having 100 ounces of water a day, and you'll adjust to that after, I would say, less than 2 weeks. If you work your way up to 100 ounces, I don't know how much you drink.
Yeah.
But yeah, your body will adjust. You'll still pee more frequently than if you don't drink water at all. But like, that's the funniest thing, right? We just sort of take it for granted that we wake up, our body works. Yeah. We do minimal things and our body works, right? We just sort of like, we get up, we eat, we go to the bathroom, we take a shower. We don't really think about how our organ systems are working.
Yeah.
And we need the water to flush out toxins. And if people realize that your fat loves toxins, then they'd probably drink more water.
Yeah. And it's so true. I was sick just for like 4 days last week, but pretty sick. And I have 2 little kids. And it just puts everything into perspective when you can't do everything that you need to do. And you just realize that like in those moments, nothing else matters.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the really positive takeaways from COVID was that it sort of brought everyone back to this place where there is this renewed reverence for our bodies. This is really our temple and how important it is that we pay attention to our bodies and sometimes just give it more than its basic needs. Because we kind of go from basic and then we skip all the way to optimizing.
Totally.
That's like usually.
I am definitely guilty of
But
that.
everyone's like that. I was talking to this woman. She was so cute, and she's going into menopause or perimenopause, and she's all these things, right? And I said, okay, let's just start really basic. Like, you definitely have a gut issue, so let's focus on your gut, and we'll do these 2-3 things. And then she's texting me like 5 hours later. What about peptides and exosomes? And I probably need that too. And I said, yes, let's build your foundation first. Because if you don't have a gut that isn't leaky, or if your gut's not absorbing everything you need, then you are flushing a lot of things down the toilet when you're taking all these expensive and amazing supplements or foods that you want to do to help yourself. But most people do that. They make that jump. They go from, okay, I've got these basics. I work out. I try to sleep 6-7 hours a day. I do a few vitamins and I do some IVs. And then that's kind of it. And I don't really pay attention to everything in between. And then now I want to do exosomes. So
I'm so like that. But I actually am currently on the healing the gut journey myself. After now I'm doing, I hope that you're going to approve of this, but I'm doing a bone broth kind of fast. Not really a fast, but I'm drinking just bone broth on Mondays. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. There's a lot of people that do these broths, and I don't know if it's a mix of vegetable and animal bone broth. Okay, that's great. Or is it just one, or is it?
So I'm doing like oxtail, chicken feet, and then I'm doing I put like ginger and turmeric and celery and carrots and basically all vegetables that I can find.
That's great. No, I think it's really good. I think it helps to give your digestive system a rest. You have all these great minerals in it, and you're also getting some collagen, some protein. You're getting all kinds of good things. I just wouldn't do it for more than like a week or 2 weeks at a time.
Like strictly bone broth with no other food. Oh, I wouldn't.
Yeah,
I'm not
because I've measured
someone's.
I've done someone's blood work on that, and then your liver markers and your pancreas, everything kind of goes off the chart. So if it's like once in a while, I have to send you my Love My Gut.
Okay,
you'll love it.
It's a supplement.
It's like a powder. Actually, brought this little booklet so you can look at it later. But it's a supplement. It's a powder, but it has all the things in it to heal your gut, because most people, your mucosal system is sort of thinned out. That's where gut permeability and leaky gut comes from. So what you need is to have things that sort of mimic that. It's very Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
But like marshmallow root, and you probably already know about glutamine and slippery elm, and I love Irish sea moss and fermented foods. But fermented foods like natto, all these things are so good for your gut and rebuilding your gut. That later in your microbiome, they're all a little gross. They have that texture. It's not like the funnest thing, but it really helps. You can heal your gut in less than 30 days for sure.
Wow. And you don't have to do like a candida cleanse or any of that. Like, I
mean, if you have candida, you would probably have to do a candida cleanse. You have a little bit of candida.
I don't know if I do, but I feel like anytime I've gone to a holistic doctor, like the first thing that they do is they're just like, you probably have candida. Here, have this. Like, is that like do most people have yeast in their gut?
I mean, you can have some yeast overgrowth, but it is very obvious, and no one should tell you have candida unless they tested you for it.
Really? Interesting.
Like I mean, even if I suspect something, you still should test for it. Yeah, for sure. Because sometimes symptoms mimic.
Right.
So you don't want to make an assumption of something, not confirm it. Treat that when it could be something else. It's just mimicking those symptoms.
I know. It's such like a game of trial and error. I do acupuncture now just kind of for hormone
so good.
Balancing. And
so good.
Yeah. So tell me about the somatic retreats that you do.
Yeah. So it's with these teachers. They're amazing, John and Christina. And they don't like us to say their method or their technique, but in some way it is. They started off as chiropractors, and it's energy work too, but they work with what's called the subtle body. So we have our physical body, and then I'm sure you've heard about chakras and your energy body, and it's sort of like the in-between. And they're able to do, like our fascia holds energy.
Right.
holds trauma. I'm sure you know this and your listeners probably already do because they're your audience. So we can release traumas, we can release that kind of blocked energy in a somatic way. So they've been doing this for over 30 years and they have so many different combinations of techniques. I can't show you here, but you can tune into different areas of someone's body and help release that, blocked or dense energy that's there.
And do you have to be in person to do this with somebody?
That you have to be in person. Reiki, I do distal. I probably did the most Reiki ever during COVID.
And you're just
distally.
So you're not anywhere near the person and you're using your mind to energetically move energy through someone else's body.
Yeah.
And it works.
It works. So we can do it distally to see if you feel it, and then we can do in person too to see if you feel it. But yeah, you learn it when you're training to become a Reiki master. They teach you distal, and it's just you focus your energy and you focus your attention.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how, let's say, this isn't the best example, but it's what I just thought off the top of my head. So if you were to close your eyes, this is part of a gratitude practice that I teach people. So close your eyes. And are you married?
No, divorced.
Okay, but you have kids?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So close your eyes. So clear your mind if you can. And you close your eyes. Now think of your kids. And think of your kids, but like really like beyond seeing them, seeing their face. Think of them until you can literally, like, you can smell them. You can sense them. You can feel them like they're right next to you. And tell me when you're there. Okay. Now tell me how you feel.
I feel like I want to snuggle them and smooch them and like I could cry. I'm so obsessed with them and I love them so much.
So that feeling that you're feeling, it's like there's a coherence that we have. That energy is so intense. Do you see how like we went right from talking about somatic trainings in Hawaii's and wherever, and you instantly can feel like you said, I can almost cry. I love them so much. That energy is so intense. So that's you focusing. I'm having you focus on people, your little ones that you know. But you can also focus your attention on someone else.
Even if you don't know them at all?
Even if you don't know them at all. It's interesting because you can focus on their voice, you can focus on their photo, you can focus on the place that they're in, on a situation. It's you leave your vessel, and it's almost like you're there. And really it's about,
do you have to be invited? Do they know that they're receiving your energy?
Yeah, it's always better to have permission. And if you've worked with someone before, or if they know you, you can send them energy. You can send them good energy. It's almost like good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
So right now you could close your eyes, think of your kids, and you can send them love, and that's fine, right? Because they've received from you before. So when it's someone that I haven't worked on before, permission's very important. So like, let's say during COVID, people would call and they'd have sick family that they couldn't be with, and they would request energy work, not just for themselves or for their loved ones. You have to have permission or be given permission. If they can give you permission to connect to that soul and be able to sort of send them energy. So do you meditate?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know about the power of like collective meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard about so many people.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that.
Interesting.
So have you done like a group like a collective meditation before?
Yes, not too many, but I have.
Okay, so did you do it in a room with everybody, or was there a reason that, let's say you're doing it with a group, but there's a group in other parts of the world or planet.
There's a TM, transcendental meditation. I know
love TM.
Yeah, that's what I practiced, not as rigorously as I used to, because their protocol is twice a day, every day.
Yeah.
But they have one, like a live every morning where people can come on.
So it's like that, because when you get on there, you're at a frequency, and you're resonating, and you're kind of all in the same vibration, even though you're not in the same physical space. And that's because you're focused on being present with the other people that are on this live, or you're focused on being present with the teacher. It doesn't matter if they're in the room or if they're in a different country and you're just looking at a screen or your phone. Your focus is there. And so there's a connection. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think it's hard for people to understand at first, but I think when you feel like the benefits of it, it becomes a lot more easy to understand. Although I will say, so I had Reiki last week. The next day, I was so sick.
That makes sense. You're releasing.
Does that happen?
Yeah, it can happen.
Huh.
It can totally happen. People release in different ways.
Right.
So some people release by going to the bathroom. Some people release by getting sick. Some people, they just become very lethargic and they need to sleep. Some people cry. It's different the way people release, but you are releasing, and that's very normal. I mean, that could happen, it could happen 3 days after, depending on movement of energy.
I guess it was like the next day I felt sick. The next day I was like, I didn't leave my house for 3 days, which ended up being the best thing, because I was like cooking and like doing all the things that I would normally not stay home to do.
Yeah, because you weren't feeling well and staying home. Oh, see, so it's like it was nourishing. So you're releasing and it's nourishing, but that's totally normal. And then sometimes people go into what's called a healing crisis too. And you might have heard that term.
No.
Okay, sometimes that happens where the release is so intense. When you're moving energy, you can release toxins. It's just whatever doesn't serve you. So that's why sometimes people can go to the bathroom or they may vomit. But you can also release emotions. So you know how we were talking about how our fascia can hold trauma, it can hold memories. Like our body, we are our physical body, our emotional body, our energy body, our mental body. It's all really one system made up of the different parts. So when you experience an emotional trauma, it can result in a physical condition or a physical discomfort. That memory and that experience sort of can get trapped there. And then when you release, it can be very cathartic. Sometimes it comes out. Some people make sounds. Some people sob. Some people yell. Some people scream. Everyone is very, very different, But sound is also movement. These are all different ways that energy moves and flows. So a healing crisis is pretty much when someone's just had a very intense session and there's a lot that's getting released. And it can feel horrible. It doesn't happen with everybody. It doesn't happen all the time.
Right.
And if it happens to you once, it doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
Right.
But you just have to like trust the process, and that it's just a release. Sort of like if you did a juice cleanse or a water cleanse, just sometimes there's some gnarly cleanses and it's really not pleasant in the release process. And sometimes it can be very uncomfortable. But by the time you're done with your cleanse, you feel great. You feel lighter. Everything that you don't need or doesn't serve you has come out. So it happens in different ways.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much off on a tangent, because sometimes I can just get too interested in this and start talking about my own stuff. But I have to ask you about, so I'm a big fan of David Sinclair, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts he's done with other podcast hosts. And one of the things that he says that is kind of at odds with other people in the health space is it sounds like he doesn't think alcohol is the devil and most other people do. What are your thoughts on that?
So David stopped drinking alcohol.
Oh, he did?
So we met almost 3 years ago, like to the day. And it's actually our anniversary next week.
Wait,
So,
this isn't your business partner. This is your partner.
So he's both.
Oh, there's a romance here.
So
I love that.
I never talk about that. I think this is the first time I've ever said that in an
You heard it
interview.
here first.
David talks about it, but I never talk about it. So he stopped drinking alcohol probably a month after we started dating.
So you changed him.
So
the episode I listened to must have been, because it was Huberman, and I think it must have been
that was before.
Old,
was before we met. Yeah, because I mean, when we met, he was drinking, and he talks about it very openly now when we do talks and he does interviews. When we met, he was definitely drinking his red wine, as he talks about, and cheese, because that was sort of his version of Mediterranean diet,
which we've all romanticized so much.
And I was like, no, this is not a longevity diet. So, what I would say is, listen, every once in a while, have a glass of alcohol, go do your thing, have fun. It's part of community and celebrating. But don't lie to yourself and tell yourself it's good for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Because I heard you say polyphenols, and I'm like, well.
So, I mean, the amount of wine you'd need to have enough polyphenols from the resveratrol, you'd need like 200 glasses of wine. You're better off taking a supplement. But, so, I mean, it's very, very rare that I do. And I just do it if I really feel like it, and I make sure that I stay hydrated, and I take like a binder before bed. So whenever you drink, you always want to make sure you take something like charcoal. So like a raw organic coconut charcoal. It helps bind to the toxins and metals or whatever is in, depending on what alcohol you're drinking. And then of course you want something that helps support your liver too. That helps. But something like dandelion green or nettle, those are all great things.
Okay, dandelion greens, nettle, and a charcoal.
Yeah, you can get them anywhere. You can get it off of Amazon. Just make sure it's raw and it's organic.
I wonder if that's what's in like a Party Smart. Do you know Party Smart?
Probably. Yeah. They have binders in there, and then they have like I think they have some fulvic minerals, and they just have minerals in there to sort of replenish you, because when you're taking a binder, it kind of binds to everything. So there's a little bit of that in there, and that's helpful. So, I mean, and of course it's fun, and there's also the community connection, and you're bonding. I know some people that say, I don't trust anybody who doesn't drink, so I totally get that. And so I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying you definitely don't want to do it often, because smoking, alcohol, and sugar are absolutely going to affect your longevity and just your overall health. But just know that it's a toxin. There's absolutely no good thing about alcohol, but it's not like we don't eat things that we know this isn't that good for us. If you're out with friends, if you're out at a game and you're eating stadium food, that stuff is terrible for you. But you're at an event and you're in community and it's fun, and you don't do it all the time.
Right.
Just know that it reduces gray matter in your brain. So I
can't afford to lose any
I'm
brain.
Like all about my brain. So yeah, just know, and then detox, cleanse yourself the next day. It doesn't have to be a major detox. It just means being really well hydrated and taking in things like parsley and cilantro, and just, get in your good greens.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to that. And his opinions about it have definitely evolved. Probably since,
I just love when a woman comes in and just changes the man just ever so slightly, because this is a guy who, I mean, very well renowned in the longevity space, and sometimes
his diet is way different.
Really?
Way different. Yeah, we did some overhauls.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I love that. That is amazing. Okay, so I know we have to wrap up, but I just wanted to quickly touch on, where can people find you, and is there anything that you currently want our listeners to know about in terms of something that you might be promoting?
Oh, okay. Well, they can find me on the website, which is serenaloves.com. And then on our social platforms, Instagram is the one I'm most active on. So that's Chef Serena Poon. And we are just so excited about our supplements. I mean, we also added a few things. You'll get it in your box.
Oh, I'm excited.
To our shop, like all of these. These are crystal bracelets. They're just all in the Serena Love shop. But
I
our
love
supplements
that.
we're so excited about, and I'm going to be launching a few more that are specific for women's health. That I just think, we've been testing it and using it, and it helps so much with all of our problem areas.
Yeah.
So that's coming soon in about 6 weeks. Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for being here. It's been so
Thank
much
you so
fun
much.
talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.